Hi guys, how are you guys? 7 p.m. Tuesday evening, and we are live again. Just had a little reset there. Yes, 7 p.m. We are live on Tuesday evening, and I will tell you guys, I genuinely look forward to Tuesday evening and going live. I just love this part of the week, and I really look forward to it. And hope that you guys do too. Hope you guys are really getting a lot out of these educational sessions, and you guys are really enjoying the content, and it's helping you kind of guide your life and what way and what path to go to, to help with healing your chronic illness and where you want to go from here, what resources are available to you, what you can do at home. So really hoping that you guys are enjoying this, enjoying this class and enjoying this educational session that we do. Like I said, I look forward to Tuesday nights, and 7 p.m. I am, a few minutes before I'm getting butterflies and ready to go on live. So this is really exciting. How's everyone doing? How's the warm temperatures treating everyone in whatever part of the country or outside the world that you're in? Shoot me a quick hi and a note. How are the temperatures? You guys getting tired of the heat already, or are you guys, happy that it's almost summer and what's going on? But before we start, I always like to make this disclaimer that this is a totally educational class, completely educational. This is not to be substituted for medical advice. You have to work with your practitioner for your specific condition and issues that you may have. Really, as I mentioned, I am a physical therapist who's been practicing the principles of functional medicine for over 15 years. I have a few I did quite a few certification courses and CEUs that I've worked over the years, but just finally decided to take the plunge and apply to the functional medicine practitioner program, and I got accepted, and I'm more than halfway through it now. But again, this is not to substitute for any medical advice. So I just have to make that disclaimer. The other thing I wanted to say real quick is just to make sure that you guys watch the other lives that I have done, and I think there's quite a few now, and I try to pin them at the top of the page. So if you can make sure to watch the lives, the reason I say that is because they've got tons of information, and people are asking just amazing questions every week, and I try to get to pretty much all of them, best that I can find them on the page. So I really recommend that you go back and watch all of those lives. And the reason I say that is because, you can wait for Tuesday night, and, you may have questions for me that I'll get to on Tuesday. But when you're feeling as sick as you are, as exhausted, as defeated, and just not well, and you want some answers. So whether it's any day of the week, go back to watch the lives and start from the first one. You'll get a lot of answers instead of just having to wait once a week. There's quite a few topics that have been covered and repeated, many times, and some may apply to you, some may not. So I really recommend to go back to watching the other live videos first, and then that way on Tuesday night you're kind of ready for the new live that we're gonna do. Oh, Sue says hi. Hi, Sue. How are you? And David says 80 degrees in Northern California. Beautiful late spring day. Hi from out my way, and thank you again. Oh, thank you so much, David. You are just always so supportive, and I'm always jealous that you are in California. It's just such beautiful weather and beautiful place to be. Um, but thank you guys. Thank you for joining, and let's go ahead and get started. Um, I think that you guys also know about the 10 steps guide that I had just kind of made based on, people in the group asking for, just kind of the basic things that I did. And very honestly, I mean, those are the 10 steps that I used from the very beginning of when I was really sick to now. I continue to use all of those 10 principles on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, I'm a lot more advanced in each of those steps, and I've progressed slowly over the years for those 10 steps, but it's still things that I use every single day. So if you haven't had a chance, I would really recommend to go download that guide. And, someone had a question on another group the other day saying, oh, well, why do you need our email address? You can unsubscribe as soon as you download that guide or any other freebies that I may do. You are welcome to download it and then unsubscribe. I don't send out marketing emails or anything like that. It's just nice to have a PDF, because on Facebook I can't post any PDFs, especially with, if you've downloaded it, you know how detailed it is with links and meditation links and things that I've done, and supplements and stuff. So it's just a very detailed guide that is difficult to just post anywhere. And so for that reason, of course, it's nice to have your email address. But I will tell you this. Um, Facebook has the ability to close any group down at any point. If they see something on there that is, against medical standards, or, sometimes things are mentioned with the pandemic, or, people's responses to it, if it's just something they don't like, they can shut down a group at any point. And so it's nice if we, are able to stay in touch somehow. And that way, if you've downloaded the guide, then we have, a way to communicate or start back up. I know this horror story of this amazing, like, multi-million entrepreneur, and they just shut her page down. I mean, it was a group or a page, I can't remember, but they shut it down overnight, and she had probably like 400,000 followers, and overnight lost everything. It was devastating. I think she fought it for a very long time. And I don't know if she ever got it back. But in any case, not to scare you guys. I mean, this is something completely that I do just to help people. But yeah, I mean, someone put that question, and I said, you're more than welcome to unsubscribe after you get the guide. But if you guys ever feel that, oh, I don't want to lose this page or this support group or anything like that, then, just download the guide, and hopefully we can stay in touch that way. All right, and so done with the housekeeping items. Let's get started. So the first question, Katie asked, hello, my soon-to-be 3-year-old is having severe issues. He has really bad ectopic dermatitis to a point he's starting to get infections on the skin. The allergist just throws steroid creams at him, stronger and stronger, and we were on a great probiotic, but that isn't enough. He also isn't gaining weight despite him eating a lot. I've tried digestive enzymes, but that doesn't seem to do much besides help the bloating look. I myself am 26, have fatigue issues, weird seizure-like episodes, can't gain weight either, always look bloated, and have a sugar addiction and issues with my vision. I see a neurologist tomorrow, but hoping to find answers. Wanted to know what your thoughts were. We have also been exposed to mold in the past while I was pregnant. So, Katie, thank you so much for such a detailed and, of course, sensitive question. Obviously, I made the disclaimer in the beginning, like, I'm not a physician. I cannot give medical advice. What I can give you is based on my, training in the principles of functional medicine, how to navigate things like this, and working with a practitioner. I don't know the full story of your pregnancy. I know you said you were exposed to mold, but I don't know the full story of your pregnancy, what you were on, what was the birth history of your son. I think a 3-year-old son, I think you said, yeah, 3-year-old son. What was the birth history? Was he born by C-section? Was he born vaginally? History of his birth. And then also, I don't know his history of antibiotic use, things like that. So, I cannot give you medical advice based on this, but what I can tell you from a functional medicine perspective, and so this is where, when you're telling me that the allergist is just throwing steroid creams at him, well-meaning practitioners. I love conventional medicine. I have been in it myself. we've gotten the care. I have 3 kids. They were born at a hospital. We love conventional medicine, right? It has its place. And the practitioners you're working with, they are very well-meaning, really good intentions practitioners. And the steroid creams are good, but they just take care of the problem on the surface. They're just helping, it's a Band-Aid solution. They're just helping really just take care of the dermatitis from a like a topical perspective, but it's really not doing much for the root cause, and which is where functional medicine comes in, because you go to the root cause. Why is it that your son has such severe dermatitis? Why is it that your son is eating so much and not gaining weight? I mean, all of those things are all tied in. And so to me, right off the bat, that just sounds like a severe leaky gut issue. And again, not knowing the history of your son, like if he was born full term, if he was born very early, if he had a lot of antibiotic use, if you had antibiotic use when you were pregnant with him, all of those things play a big part in leaky gut. And so when you have leaky gut, so basically the lining, your intestinal lining, which is supposed to be this really fine mesh, has holes in it. And so typically only nutrients are supposed to go through, but once there's those little holes in there, even food particles start going through, and so then your immune system comes to the rescue and starts fighting those food particles because it just thinks there's a foreign substance coming in. And so that's what causes that flare up and that immune reaction and things like that. And so then that always presents as skin issues and mental issues and psychological issues. I mean, there's so many ways when you have a leaky gut how it presents. And especially if you're telling me he's eating a lot, but he's not growing because his body's not able to absorb the nutrients properly. So clearly a lot going on there in the GI, in the gut, and that really needs to be addressed. And that's where functional medicine comes in, because it gets to the root cause. Like, it's going to look at your child as an individual. It's not just a one size fits all, like the same steroid that they prescribe to the 3-year-old all the way to the 75-year-old. It's not just the one size fits all. They are going to really work with your child's gut, and they do testing, and they do blood work, and they'll do stool tests, and they do so much of this to find out, first of all, what is going on there, what's going on with his gut, what's going on with his blood work and his nutrients, and where is he getting all the minerals and vitamins and things like that. And so that's the first place they start, and then they're going to start with treating the gut. And mold actually plays a big part in causing leaky gut. And so sugar plays a huge part in leaky gut, whether you, like you said, you have a sugar addiction, or you had a lot of it when you were pregnant with your son. For you yourself, that's posing as issues now. So it really sounds like both you and your son need to be seen by a functional medicine practitioner who can then get to the root cause of what's going on with you, but particularly your son. I will tell you this, that from a functional medicine perspective, the way leaky gut is addressed is it's a 5R protocol. If you go back to the lives, so I try to pin all the previous lives on the top of each of the page. And so if you scroll to the right, it's the oldest one is all the way to the right, and they're dated. If you look at the live that was done on April 12th, so 4/12/22, I talk about this whole protocol for how to heal leaky gut from a functional medicine perspective, and it's the 5R protocol. So what is the 5R protocol? It's remove. So in this case, you're going to remove allergenic or inflammatory foods, bacteria, food allergies like gluten and dairy. You're going to start removing that. So that's the first R. The second R is replace. So you'd be replacing with digestive enzymes, HCl, bile acids, really trying to help proper digestion to take place. Then the third R is reinoculate. We're using pre and probiotics to really replenish the good bacteria in the gut, to provide food for the good bacteria so they thrive versus the bad bacteria. And then repair, where you are going to provide key nutrients to help repair and support the GI tract, like vitamin C, zinc, quercetin, bromelain is pretty good, omega-3s like fish oils and things like that, glutamine, to really help heal those junctions in the gut. So that's repair. And then the last one is rebalance, where you're really making a change in your lifestyle choices. obviously sleep and exercise, and then diet is really key for healing a leaky gut. Stress levels, things like that. So remove, replace, re-inoculate, repair, and then rebalance. That's a 5R protocol. I talked a lot about it on April 12th, so I really recommend that you go back and listen to that one. But, really, Katie, I mean, I really think that your son will do very, very well, as will you, if you work with a functional medicine practitioner who will start getting to the root cause of things, because, unfortunately, it only gets worse. And at this point, I mean, your son, if he's got such, leaky gut issues and he's struggling, and he's just having this dermatitis, I mean, it's really painful, and it's really just a tough condition to have. So I highly, highly urge you to look up a functional medicine practitioner in your area, or ifm.org has just some amazing functional medicine practitioners that are certified, and you will see a lot of benefit. It is a little bit more of an expensive route. The testing is more expensive, but if you look at everything that you're spending in the long run with doctor's appointments and steroid creams and all this stuff and lifelong of suffering, which is only going to cause other problems, and it's going to be a snowball effect, sometimes it's just really worth the investment. So hope that helps, Katie. And then Heather says hello. Teresa says hello. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Teresa, as well, for being here. So David asked, appreciate your ongoing efforts doing these Facebook Lives. I was curious how you discovered the MTHFR mutation. If I remember correctly, you are MTHFR homozygous like me and my daughter, and how have you learned over time to best address it in regards to the B vitamins you take and the methylated group vitamins? Obviously, we're all different even with similar genetics, but curious how you've progressed through that part of the recovery and journey. Oh, that's a great question. Thank you so much, David, for your kind words, but for also asking this question. Yes, I am homozygous for MTHFR, and the way it was originally discovered was one of my doctors that I worked with in the very beginning. He had me do a cotton swab where I, on my cheek, had to basically get a little sample of cells and then send that in, and that's the way they were able to discover my MTHFR. I think some people have discovered it and found it on 22andMe, the DNA, like gene testing, but mine was through the cheek swab. And then later on, when I worked with the Shoemaker certified physician, he had done some blood work, and I think it comes in like when the results come, it's a very code, long letters, things, and he was able to decipher it and say that I had the MTHFR gene. I have both, so homozygous. And so that's how it was obviously found initially. You're correct in talking about the methylated vitamins, B vitamins. So I only take methylated B vitamins, and really otherwise your body cannot process it. If you have the MTHFR gene, it cannot break it down, and so you're really just wasting your money and getting these supplements in that are not helping you. So I only take methylated, and as I have mentioned before, I only take my supplements from Global Healing, because again, they are pure, organic, cold pressed. He grows his own herbs and plants and things like that. And so for me, that's the only one I take. But that is exactly one of the reasons why I take Global Healing, because their vitamin B is very, very clean, methylated, and so my body can actually absorb it. And I think I've told this story before, but when I took their B12, so when I started this whole journey, obviously my B12 was very, very low and I was very ill. And I want to say my B12 was probably in like the 300 range. And of course, my regular primary care was like, oh yeah, it looks great, which really is not. And so then when I went down this path and I was really ill, and I started working with the naturopath, and he put me on this B12. I just put the link in the comments here. He put me on this B12, and I kid you not, within 3 months, my B12 numbers went up to 900. And then another 3 months later, I was up to 1200. And that by that point, I was already working with a functional medicine doctor. And I remember her telling me that you don't have to take the B12 anymore, at least every day. You can take it like every other day or every second day. I mean, that's how quickly, and it's a vegan B12. It's completely pure. So yes, I take all the B vitamins that are methylated. And then what else do? I have to do a lot on a day-to-day basis just to make sure that my body is detoxifying. Obviously, I need to assist my body in detoxification because that is just a gene that I lack or that I'm not able to detoxify very well, which is probably one of the reasons why I was so affected and got so sick versus anyone else in my family. And so I do glutathione. I do liposomal glutathione, so the one under the tongue. But I take breaks on those. I only do them, like 2 months, and then I stop for 3-4 months, and then I do 2 months again. Because you really don't want to be on glutathione long term. I really feel that you should just take little breaks and help your body detoxify, and then take a few months off and things like that. So I do liposomal glutathione. Um, I don't drink much. I used to in college. I used to have some wine and things like that, but my liver really struggles, and so then that's just not some added stress that I should be adding on the liver. I eat everything organic because that's the other thing. Pesticides, things like that really are harmful for the liver, and especially if you cannot detoxify, then for me it would be very difficult. I know in the beginning of my journey when I was so sick, and nothing worked. I couldn't tolerate anything. I couldn't tolerate any supplements. I couldn't even tolerate 3 drops of distilled water on my tongue. It just was such a tough phase for me. And that was part of the problem, was because my liver was completely congested. It just couldn't detoxify. I was just going through so much stress and everything that had been going on at the time. And so for me, I've mentioned this before, and I hate to sound repetitive, but the liver cleanses were amazing. That was just really something that my liver needed. Same link that I put there. They have one of the best liver cleanse brands out there. And so that was really helpful for me. And so I haven't done one in about 5 months. I did 7 last year. And I haven't done one in about 5 months. I really should keep up with it once every 4 months. But I do a lot of fasting here and there, so then that also helps quite a bit with detoxification. So yeah, the liver cleanses were really helpful. I mean, it's just a lifestyle. I have to really assist my body every day. I do sauna quite a bit, a couple of times a week, 3 times a week if I can, whether I do the blanket or I go to the gym. I do infrared sauna to help my body with detoxification. I do photobiomodulation sometimes, so I'll do red light therapy 2 to 3 times a week, infrared and red light, just to help with detoxification. So that's something else I do. So I really have to lead a very clean life, especially after I got so sick. I've always been a very clean eater, and I've always been a very healthy individual for the most part. But now in the last like 6, 7 years, I'm even healthier, even cleaner in my food choices and what I eat when I'm out. Obviously, like I said, no alcohol. Really have to just take care of myself and then assist my body in these things. Now things are so much better now. Like I could, obviously take a bite of gluten here and there if I wanted. I'm pretty much vegan, but once in a while I really do like some cottage cheese for some protein or even some yogurt. So I'll do things like that. So I'm a lot better now as far as, my lifestyle is not so rigid, but I do have to continue helping my body with detoxification methods on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis because that's part of my recovery journey now, and it's probably something that I'm going to do for the rest of my life, just given the genes I was given. So this is rosemary, like hot water with rosemary. I'll drink that to help with some detoxification as well. A few things I do on a day-to-day basis. I know coffee enemas are very, very good for increasing glutathione and helping with detoxification. So that's, another a good alleyway. So it's just really more of a lifestyle participation and change and things like that. Okay, let's see. Excuse me. Okay. Georgie asked, how did you survive financially while bedridden and healing? Sorry. I'm already struggling massively while working minimum hours, and I don't think I'd get by living off my husband's wage. And I couldn't get a pension, but I want time off so bad to focus on my healing. It's a catch 22. I agree 100%, Georgie. I don't know where you live. I might have asked you that in the past, and I'm sorry if I forgot, but it is very, very difficult to have a chronic illness and try to support yourself and your family. Um, I'll give you my story and my example. I was a very, very active individual before I got sick, and we I'm a physical therapist, and I had a little business on the side as well, as an entrepreneur, and I used to do both things, and then I just got very sick, and so over time I had to stop my business. That was the first thing that I had. Unfortunately, I'd had the business for 7 or 8 years and was doing pretty well, but it involved a lot of travel, and so the first thing I had to do was stop the business. I continued working as a PT. As a physical therapist, but a lot of I was in upper level management, so a lot of my work could be done from home. I wasn't seeing patients clinically, and so I started seeing, doing stuff from home. And then it got to a point where I couldn't even put in 20 hours a week. I was so sick by that point, at the peak of my illness. I couldn't even put in 20 hours a week. So it was just a really stressful time. I asked my job for adjustments, and instead of 40 hours, I cut down to 20 hours. And I would try to work best on the days that I felt pretty good. I would try to do, some work from home, things like that. And then I asked for alternative responsibilities. And so, because I used to do a lot of training for other PTs and clinic managers and stuff like that. And so I asked for a lot of alternative requirements. If I could work from home, I started training, all the clinic managers and directors on Zoom. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, a lot of changes had to be made. And then there came a point where I couldn't work at all. I barely could function. Cognitively was not there. Just emails didn't make sense. I'd have to make presentations and they didn't make sense. And so there was a point where I had to completely stop working and I had to give up my job. Um, I was lucky enough that I was able to rely on my husband for financial reasons, but I know that that's not a privilege that is extended to everybody. Um, but it was a really, really tough time, strain on our family for sure. So I tried as best as I could. Like I said, within the first year, I lost my business, and that unfortunately just went down the drains. But then after that, another year or so tried to make adjustments with my job, and they were very, very accommodating, very understanding. And then ultimately, when I just couldn't do it anymore, I stopped. So, try to go as far as you can without pushing yourself. I hope you're not doing shift work or you're working the night hours, because that's going to be really critical that you or anybody in this group that is working the night shift, you really should try and talk to your employer to see if they can put you in the morning shift. And most of your doctors can write you this note. I mean, this is something that could be very, very helpful for you if you're a shift worker, or if your shift even starts at like 4 a.m., anything like that. I mean, like really having the night to sleep. Like I said, I went part-time, if that's an option for you to go to part-time, and maybe try that route. And then the other thing is I would just have to find ways to decompensate, to decompress when I got home. Or if I had worked, 20 hours, 30 hours, and I needed to decompress, then my evening. See, I've never been a TV person. I don't really like TV. I've never really watched TV. I'm not a big fan of it. So I didn't spend hours watching TV till late in the night, anyways. But a lot of mine was just studying, and I would just watch classes, and I would be doing certifications for my functional medicine program, not the practitioner program. Just over the 15 years, I've just done so many continuing education classes. And so a lot of my time went in that. And so I had to just start stopping myself. So if you're someone who watches TV until midnight because, I don't know, you have to watch the next, episode of whatever, sitcom or whatever serial is out there now. I don't even know them. That's pretty sad. I guess I'm going to say Ozark, maybe? Is that something out there? Or This Is Us? I don't know what people watch. My husband watches everything. But So if you're someone out there who watches a lot of TV and you're watching TV till 11 at night, midnight, then that's going to be your first thing to stop, is because if you help yourself on the hours that you are home, then you might be able to put in still 15, 20 hours at work. And so, yeah, I know people say when they come home or like at night after they put the kids to bed, they have to decompress by watching TV, but you're really not helping yourself, not only with the Wi-Fi and the EMF, that's coming to you and it's not helping, but then just the blue light, and then you're not sleeping well. So really being disciplined in your life, that the evening time, once the kids are in bed, or you're done with work, to really focus on that time on healing yourself, whether you're doing modalities or infrared or sauna or detox or enemas or meditation, whatever you're working on, to really use that time to focus on that and really, really, lights out by 9:30 p.m. And so that you can function the next day, so that you can actually work the next day. And finding other ways to decompress, maybe like, going for a massage, get that lymph fluid going, maybe going for a walk to get that lymph fluid going and help your brain inflammation and things like that. The other thing is that, unfortunately, because this is such a serious, debilitating illness, and I know because I was there, it's so debilitating for me, but then I couldn't even do anything for my family, is really the partner has to pitch in. The first, I would say, 13 years or 14 years of our marriage, my husband is just super, super busy and travels a lot and was gone a lot, and I just put in all the work, and then I got really sick. And so for those 4 years, he had to really step up to the plate. And I remember my best friend and I having this long conversation on the phone where she was like, Z, don't feel guilty, because he's now stepping up to the plate, and at the end of the day, it's till death do you part. And so it's tough, but I'm sure that if your husband or partner or anybody fell that ill, then you would step up to the plate for those year, 2 year, 3 years, whatever it is. And so in that case, like, my husband really was just my rock and my support system. And so the partner has to pitch in more, and that way you can have some time away. Like, for me, it was so hard to function with the kids. And so after dinner, I just couldn't function. I was exhausted. I couldn't even sit up. And so he would just say, you know what, go up, go to bed. Or I would just say, I can't take it. Like, I got to go up to bed. 6:30, I was laying down because I was just so sick. And so, yeah, he had to pitch in some more. And that way, if you get your rest in that way, and that way you can go to work in the morning. But it's really just about really having a disciplined lifestyle. And not scrolling social media. Like, I gave up phone and social media for a long time just because it was making me sick. The EMF was making me sick, or sicker than I already was. And so there has to be a lot of give on your part of what you're going to give up, so that you really focus on your wellness and what you would do to make sure you got well. Like, I wanted to get better come hell or high water. I was going to make it happen. And so if it meant giving up my social media, not scrolling on the phone, if it just meant listening to meditation and reading and learning more about, how to heal myself, then that's what it entailed. And then the other thing too is I learned this the hard way. I'm a very, very type A personality. Like, I'm always 3 steps ahead of my kids. I always have been. Everything is very structured and very organized in my home, and I'm just a very, very regimented, scheduled person. My kids are that, like, raised that way because I had 3 kids back to back. And so I just started learning the hard way that you have to give up some tasks. Like, there was a very long period of time where the house was dirty, like, things were everywhere, toys were everywhere, and the kids' closets were a mess, and everything was a mess, and laundry was not done for a while. I mean, I had to feel better one day to attack, the laundry that day, or like to get to the kids' closets, or like stuff is everywhere on the shoes and socks. And I mean, it was just a tough time. But I just had to give up some tasks entirely. Obviously, working out was one of the number one things to go. I couldn't work out anymore, and it had to be, completely out, like laundry or chores, things like that would, have to wait. So it's really prioritizing again. And again, my husband had to pitch in, help with laundry, or we would fold together, or, anything like that. Like if kids' activities, I used to drive my kids around like a crazy woman, all three kids in different activities. We had to really just sit down as a family and cut down all sports and extracurricular activities. And the kids somewhat understood, but somewhat not, because they were very young too at the time, and they just didn't understand what was going on with me, but they also didn't understand why they had to make so many sacrifices. But you just had to sit down as a family and just say, look, what are the things that we can take out, and what are the things that are absolutely necessary? So if you working is absolutely necessary financially, then you're going to have to cut down all the other stuff. And a dirty house can wait, and a laundry can wait, and maybe have friends pitch in and do some meals and things like that. Um, and I don't know if you have kids or not, but if some of their stuff can be put on the back burner, it's just temporary. It's temporary until you get better. I mean, mine took a long time, almost 4 or 5 years, but it was well worth it, because then I was back and I was driving the kids around, and I was back to helping my husband and doing stuff around the house and things like that. Um, I was so sick to a point that I couldn't even go get groceries. And so, unfortunately, I would just have to order the groceries. And then, you you pick them up, because delivery is expensive, but I would just pick them up, or my husband would pick them up and they would just put them in his trunk, and that's also something that's a little bit more doable. So, things like that. I mean, you just have to find ways to make things happen, and stick to the priorities, and then the rest you kind of just put on the back burner. So hope that helps. Every situation is different, unfortunately, and I am telling you, I've been there. It is just such a tough, tough time. I had 3 young kids, and it's just a really tough time. And luckily, like I said, my husband was my rock, and he had seen me for 14, 15 years be this rock and handle the entire family and kids and manage the house and work, and I did everything. And then all of a sudden it was just like it all came crashing down. So I get it. I've been there, done that 100%. And it was tough for me, the type A in me that had a hard time just kind of not having all this dirty stuff around, and the house is not as clean and organized as it's always been, and that kind of stuff just had to be put on the back burner. So I know there was a time my mom had to come and help for a week, just because I was so bedridden. And I remember there was a time that I believe one of my sons was having some dental work and had to get teeth removed, and my mom had to come for that. I mean, I was lucky enough to have some support, and so that was a really helpful time. Sorry, I just have to turn this off. And so yeah, it just really takes a lot of planning and a lot of coordination. And like I said, then you just have to pick and choose what's important, especially in the evenings, and then that way you can still go to work. Yeah, Lisa says, that's been the hardest part of my recovery. It also forced me to take care of myself and not feel bad about it, and not being able to do what I used to do before. I mean, that is so true, Lisa. That guilt just kills you. It's just so, especially when you've been, go, 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 like I was, and you are such a go-getter person, and you are, just someone who's always going, 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 and then all of a sudden it comes crashing down. And so, yeah, sorry, this is just, so yeah, sorry about that. To just turn this off, it kept beeping here. And when you're such a go, go, go person, and then all of a sudden, thankfully, my husband's been very supportive, but it's almost even not like self-care. It's almost like you have to do it, otherwise you can't even function the next day. And so you have to stop and take care of yourself. You're not pampering yourself. You're not like going to a spa or getting your nails done or anything like that. Like, you're really just taking care of yourself so you can actually stand up the next day. And so, yeah, there's nothing to feel guilty about, because every time I would say that and I would feel horrible and I'd feel guilty, my husband's like, no, you've got to get it done so that you can get back to who you are and be that person again. So, um, yeah, it's really tough. But yeah, I hope that helps, Georgie. I know it's a little bit of a long-winded answer. Um, Pamela asked, how do you naturally heal hormones, low thyroid from Lyme and mold? How do you stop hair loss in connection with this? What are the steps to getting the body back to normal? Is it possible to do so? So, Pamela, I don't know if you watched the live Q&A that I did. I believe it was last week, where I talked about my story from the hormonal perspective. And I I have finally, maybe 2 months ago, stopped all the hormones that I was on. I was on very high doses of progesterone, estrogen, testosterone, all of that, and it's possible. It's doable. It's possible. It took me almost 4 years to completely get off all those hormones and do all of that. So it's definitely possible. Um, and so if you watched any of the previous lives, I think it was the second one, maybe, I'm not sure, but I talked about the OAT axis, which is the ovarian, adrenal, thyroid axis. It's like a bar stool. All three legs have to be equal and balanced for you to be able to sit on that bar stool. And so the OAT, ovarian, adrenal, thyroid, you have to heal the adrenals first. In the functional medicine world, usually whenever there is disruption or injury or any kind of insult to the adrenals, it'll take the other two out. It'll take the thyroid out and it'll take the ovaries out. And in my case, it completely took my ovaries out, just straight up. My ovaries were not working at all because my adrenals were completely shot. I was in stage 4 adrenal failure. And so it is very connected. And so you have to take care of that. So Lyme, mold, any of those things will really take out your adrenals. It'll cause leaky gut. And so all of that has to be addressed. So I don't know, Pamela, if you are working with a functional medicine practitioner that can work with you on all of this. You might be, because if you're saying that you have Lyme and mold and things like that, but really the key is to get to the root cause, which in this case, obviously, you're going to have to address the gut. You're going to have to address the adrenals first. And then once you start healing the adrenals, which is what happened in my case, then slowly you're balancing that stool again. And so then you start healing the ovaries and the thyroid as well. The other thing about balancing your hormones and how to get back to normal, one of the things that people don't realize is something called insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the number one cause for hormonal disruptions. In fact, now they are finding that insulin resistance is the number one cause, and that is the treatment is to heal insulin resistance for PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. And so if you really have hormones out of whack and you need to get your fasting insulin checked, and if your fasting insulin is really high, I mean, they say, anywhere from 6 to 20 is acceptable. But honestly, in the functional medicine world, your fasting insulin needs to be less than 6 to be disease free and to not have the beginning of any kind of disease. So I don't know, because I've always just been a very, very healthy eater and I exercise and things like that. But I guarantee you, when I was very, very sick, I probably had very high levels of insulin resistance. I was not obese or anything like that. I was not a diabetic or anything like that. But, stress and inflammation causes your insulin to really, really go high. And your body becomes insulin resistant. And so your body has to produce more and more insulin. And so that really is a big factor. So how is that? You have to clean up your diet, high fat, healthy fats, high protein, and then very simple carbs. If you're able to exercise, then go for a walk after each meal, or go for a walk at least once a day, and that will really help your insulin resistance. And then the other thing for me that worked a lot, because like I said, it was a 3-4 year process of very, very disciplined lifestyle, and I continue every day still leading this lifestyle, is to, do detox methods every day. I mentioned them earlier on in the talk today, detox methods, decrease inflammation. I do photobiomodulation, which is red light therapy. Um, PEMF. I do cold plunges the whole winter. A whole winter I did cold plunges, and it really, really helps with inflammation. So it's really a lot of pieces of the pie put together to help with healing your hormones naturally. But I will tell you, and at least for me, I had to heal my adrenals, which meant I needed to get the 4-point cortisol test. My adrenal, my test, the cortisol awakening response, there was none. I was flatlined for quite a while. And so it took a lot of work to heal my adrenals, and then it took a lot more work to even heal my ovaries and get back to where I was. And so you really have to get worked up first by a functional medicine practitioner, get all the testing done, and figure out what is your biggest problem. Is it the leaky gut that they're going to have to start with, which, when in doubt, treat the gut. But also then your adrenals are probably a big issue, which is why your thyroid is off, and your hair loss is very hormonal related and things like that. So really have to address the whole piece of the pie together. Deb asked, were you given any actual diagnosis, and if so, would you share? I laugh because mine is a long, long story, and I will gladly tell you guys what my diagnoses are. I have just so many things. So where do we start? So originally, when I was so sick and had no idea what was going on with me, was just exhausted, bedridden, couldn't do much, and my blood work kept coming back normal. My PCP gave me the diagnosis that nothing was wrong with me. She said to me, I'm just an exhausted mom. And she said I was her poster child of a patient because I was so healthy and I was fit and, was a clean eater. And she said, oh, my patients come to me and they drink 5 sodas a day and you're my best patient, go home. So she didn't give me any diagnosis. She said nothing was wrong with me. After that, my urogynecologist, because of the frequency of urination and things like that, she said I had interstitial cystitis, was like one of the diagnoses I got. Then I went to see 2 rheumatologists at different places, because none of them could figure out what was wrong with me. And they said fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. They tried to give me a prescription for antidepressants, which I'm not against, but I didn't need antidepressants. I was so sick. I was not unhappy. I needed help why my body was shutting down. So then fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue were thrown in as my diagnosis. I bet you if someone opens my chart at a hospital, they would just be like, wow, there's like so many diagnoses were put in. Then I saw 2 endocrinologists who found nothing wrong with me. But then my friend, the third person, she was a third endocrinologist. I was talking to her and she said, why don't you just come in and let me just do all this, blood work for your women's panel. She was the first one to do all my women's hormones. And she just called me the next day and she's like, you are in menopause. Like your numbers are those of a 58-year-old. And I was 40 at the time. And so that was really shocking. So then I went to see an OBGYN who then diagnosed me with being fully postmenopausal. So that was another diagnosis that I got. And then after everything failed, nobody was finding anything wrong with me. Then I started, going really the functional medicine route, which is what I knew best. But at the time was still, making sure that I went the conventional medicine route. And then I took matters in my own hands. And that's when I saw an acupuncturist, and she was the first person to diagnose me with adrenal fatigue. And she was fantastic. I really hope to have her on this group at some point as an interview. And then because she diagnosed me as that, I started working with an adrenal fatigue specialist, and he was okay, but I just worked with him for a few months. I wasn't too impressed. Then I started working with my dear, dear friend who's a world-renowned naturopath, and he's just one of the most brilliant minds out there. And he agreed with all of these things, that I had leaky gut and that I had adrenal fatigue and that I had, menopause and all of this. And then he also said I had parasites, and he wanted me he did the all cleanse for parasites and things like that. So that was another diagnosis. And then I started working with the first functional medicine doctor who diagnosed me with CIRS. She was the first one to say, oh, you have CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, CIRS, and you have leaky gut. And so because she took me down, she then went on medical leave because she was pretty sick herself. And so she took me down that path. And I ended up working with a shoemaker certified physician, like a shoemaker certified doc. And he said I had severe cortical atrophy and I had CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. So I got diagnosed with that. And then I started working with a second functional medicine doctor because the previous one left. For medical leave. And so then the second functional medicine doctor, after I had worked with the shoemaker certified practitioner for over 6 months, then she said I had mitochondrial disease. She said I had MCAs, I had chronic inflammatory, probably Lyme. I mean, there's just everything was thrown at me at that time too. And then I started also working with a functional medicine OB, who then said I had SIBO and I had candida. And then she was the one who said, no, your diagnosis is not menopause, but it's premature ovarian failure. So I chuckled early on because Deb, my journey has just been like a twilight zone. It was just such a long journey, and every single diagnosis that you could possibly think of was thrown at me. It's in my chart. I bet you if they open my chart, it's going to be like, whoa. Um, anyways, but it took me a lot of years to fight all of these labels and diagnoses and really work hard to heal myself. So thanks for asking that question. I'm very open with my story. So uh, Sue asks, one of my biggest struggles is getting adequate and healing sleep. I rarely can fall asleep before midnight, no matter what I try. And then I wake up between 3 to 4 a.m. It seems I can only sleep 3 to 4 hours at a time. I currently take 10 milligrams of melatonin, but it does not seem to help anymore. What natural supplements would you suggest to help with my sleep? Also, are there any other methods to get sleep? Thanks so much. Sue, you had asked this question on May 3rd. And if you go back to the top where all the lives are pinned, I had answered this question on May 3rd in a lot of detail. So I really urge you and anyone else having sleep issues to watch this one because I talked a lot about the specifics and the supplements and things like that. It's May 3rd is the date that I had done this live. So I really urge you guys to watch it. But just for everyone tuning in today and just to answer Sue's question, you know, the first thing that I would start with is working with a functional medicine practitioner who's going to do a 4-point cortisol test. When you tell me, and I think on May 3rd too, you'd really put your detailed sleep pattern in. It was a very disturbed sleep pattern. And then even what you asked today, it's a very disturbed sleep pattern, almost like you have very high cortisol in the evening. And then, you're unable to sleep till so long, and then you sleep a little bit, and then you wake up and all of that. So you really need to work with a practitioner who will do your 4-point cortisol test. And healing your adrenals is probably going to be the first thing for you. And so I'm sure if your adrenals are out of whack, then your ovaries and the ovarian axis and the thyroid axis is all out of whack, which means you can't sleep. So that's definitely going to be critical for you to balance your hormones, your sex hormones, natural how old you are, or if you're on any kind of hormones. But that's going to be critical because of that you can't sleep as well. And then, I don't recommend people just taking adaptogens without really knowing if they're high or low. And even if sometimes you're high or low, someone like me who had complete adrenal failure, till this day, I really, really struggle with adaptogens. So it's not something that I recommend to go treat yourself. But, some of the adaptogens that people take are ashwagandha and holy basil if your cortisol is really high to help bring those down. One thing that I really am a fan of, and I know it's really a big thing in the functional medicine world, is phosphoserine, phosphatidylserine. And I take that at bedtime to help wind down and really cut down my cortisol. It's just an amino acid. It's just very, very helpful. So phosphatidylserine. If you look at the notes from May 3rd, I think I put the live from May 3rd on the bottom. There's a link there, and that'll help balance that. And then hormone testing, like I said, you have to get your sex hormones tested, and sometimes you really do need to supplement with bioidentical estrogen and progesterone to really help with that aspect as well. And then other things you asked, I do a lot of yoga, meditation before bed. If you downloaded my 10 steps guide, I put the actual meditations that I did to help heal myself, but also with sleep. Until this day, I can meditate and within minutes I'm asleep. And I could, if I sit there and I try to fall asleep, then it takes me a little bit longer. So I highly, highly recommend that if you haven't downloaded the 10-step guide, I put a lot of stress relief methods in there, tapping and meditation and links to meditation, links that I still listen to till today. And then vagus nerve stimulation. From the live on May 3rd, you'll see in the bottom, I put the link for this unit called Nirvana that I use, which has got like headphones, and I put my meditation on, and it helps stimulate your vagus nerve. Some tapping, some humming, any of those things to really help. So go back and watch the one on May 3rd. It'll really just give you a lot of insight on all of these things and what we use, what I've used, and things like that. And then the follow-up question by Georgie to that question was, what does the 3 a.m. wake-ups mean? I'm awake 3 to 6 a.m. every night, and here it's either liver struggling, blood sugars, or cortisol levels. So yes, so when you have at 3 a.m. that drop in blood sugar, your body's like, whoa, 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 blood sugar is dropping, and so then your adrenals will produce all this cortisol because it needs to help rebalance and bring that sugar level back up. And in doing so, then it tells the liver to dump all the stored glucose into the bloodstream, and so that you don't have this plummet in your sugar levels. So that's really what's going on. If that's what you're doing, is waking up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., is your blood sugar's dropping, and then your cortisol is spiking, and then your liver has to dump all this glucose and things like that. So some suggestions that I offer, or that I have done, especially for myself, but from a diet perspective, is your dinner needs to have a really good amount of proteins and a good amount of fats. Whatever you eat, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, doesn't matter, but your dinner needs to be high protein, high fat, and simple carbs. So my dinner time is when I have most of my carbs. So I eat a lot of lentils and a lot of quinoa, and I try to save those for dinner. My breakfast is high in protein. My lunch is high in protein, high fat, tempeh, tofu, all of that. But my dinner is where I get my carbs in with my lentils and my quinoa. It's more carbs. They're healthy carbs. They're simple carbs. They're slow release carbs. But you definitely need a good amount of carbs with your dinner, not a plate of pasta or pizza. That's going to make you spike and then drop. So not pizza or pasta. When I say carbs, I mean healthy carbs, sweet potato, lentils, quinoa. That kind of stuff is really what you need at dinner. So it helps you really sleep well through the night. The other thing is that if this is constantly happening, then you really need to have something around 8 o'clock. I don't recommend eating too close to dinner time. And so around 8 o'clock, you really, I don't recommend eating too close to bedtime. Sorry about that. But 8 o'clock, maybe having a protein shake, which is a really good way to keep your blood sugar levels steady through the night so you don't have that drop. The other thing that I do a lot is called fatty tea, that I recommend to patients. But if it's a fatty tea, then it's hot water with collagen peptides. You can get the collagen peptides from Amazon, any brand or whatever. Like usually has 10 to 12 grams of protein in it. So collagen peptides if you eat meat, because collagen peptides are not vegetarian. And then some coconut oil and hot water and honey. And that's like this fatty tea, fatty, F-A-T-T-Y, fatty tea, because it's full of fat. And then it's got the protein, 10 to 12 grams from collagen peptides. And then you mix it all up and drink that. I mean, your blood sugar level will stay steady through the night. And that way you don't have this massive drop when the sugar levels drop. And so you can sleep through the night. And then this is where I talked about the cottage cheese. I really like cottage cheese and nuts. I can't tolerate too much dairy, so I really don't do it. But at 8 o'clock, I'm really, really starving. Then I'll just do some cottage cheese with some honey and then nuts, just to hold me through the night. But you see, all these suggestions that I've offered are good amount of proteins and then a healthy fat. So cottage cheese is about 14 grams of protein per serving, with some nuts, which is healthy fats, and then some honey, which is your simple carbs, and then take that around 8 p.m. So the key is to not have your sugar levels plummet. And so that will really help you not, stay awake at 3 a.m. And then I guess we have time for one more question. Tammy asks, how do we know what's what when you have different weird symptoms and so much going on in the body, Lyme, hormones, viruses, metals, etc.? How do you know when to worry about a certain symptom? So, Tammy, if you heard what I gave earlier on, my list of diagnoses is like this huge drop down menu. You can pick and choose and get any diagnosis you want, right? And so, yes, they are all interconnected. I mean, the human body is just amazing, amazing in how it's all connected and how, that I think it's that Animaniacs song is like the hip bone's connected to the toe bone and everything is connected. And so it's when you have Lyme or mold, your hormones are going to be affected, your adrenals are taken out, you've got leaky gut. And this is why I really have been practicing functional medicine principles for such a long time, because I really like that aspect. Even as a PT, I've been a PT for, gosh, 22 years now. And when a patient would come to me with tendonitis or bursitis or anything like that, I would get to the root cause. Like, yes, I can treat the bursitis locally, I can treat the tendonitis locally, but why is it happening? Where is the imbalance? Do they have an imbalance in their scapula? Do they have an imbalance in their hip, which is causing what's causing? Because I can take care of the symptoms all day long, but then once they're gone, they're going to have pain. And so my theory has always been to get to the root cause, which is why when I discovered functional medicine over 15 years ago, I was like, wow, this is exactly what I talk about. So getting to the root cause. So yeah, you don't want to worry about every single symptom because there's going to be so many. Um, but you want to start addressing the specific things. So addressing the gut, that's critical. When you treat the gut, you're going to take half the list of symptoms off. Then when you treat the adrenals, you'll take half the list of symptoms off. And when you treat the adrenals, then you're treating the OAT axis and the ovarian, adrenal, thyroid axis, then you're treating a whole bunch of symptoms. And so you're taking care of the sex hormones that way. So all of those things are interconnected. And rather than just treating each symptom and worrying about a symptom, I would look at systems as a whole, and then start addressing those to help your symptom tracker or your score go down. And so that's where, and then the other thing too is once you have all of this, if you guys saw, I put a poll the other day on the group about how many people, had gotten sick because of trauma or stress. And it was shocking. Like when I counted, it was about 85%, but I think by the end of the week, it was like up to 97%. So 97% of the people that responded had their start due to trauma or stress. And so it was a very small study group, but it was just a question that I had put out there. And so when people are really sick like this with chronic illness, they've had like serious stress that kind of set them off. Your immune system is in hyper reactive mode, which is a big problem because even the smallest factor, your immune system reacts. Your limbic system is in hyper reactive mode, and so your limbic system is always playing that trauma loop versus getting out of that cycle. And so that's where I had talked about things like modulating immune system, like Digesticure, which I really am a big fan of, and I'm still on all these years later, or LDN. Um, and then if you guys saw, I put on the group a talk by Dr. Rangan Chatterjee and Dr. Joe Dispenza. These are two guys that I have followed for a very, very long time. And I love the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza as well, as well as Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. But if you downloaded the 10-step guide that I had put out there, I actually put links to Dr. Joe Dispenza's, page and YouTube meditations and things like that. Because if you listen to this talk, if you haven't listened to this link that I put, it's an Apple Podcast link. I'm sure you can get it on any platform, but Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, who's based in the UK, and Dr. Joe Dispenza have this fantastic conversation about if your mind and your thoughts can make you sick, then your thoughts and your mind can make you better. And thinking of how you're already better, thinking about your subconscious mind, and really, really teaching your body that you are healed, that you will heal, and that you are better, and visualizing all of that. I mean, I'll tell you, when I first had heard Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, maybe 6 years ago, I was like, oh, this seems so impossible. And, I'm so sick and I have so many symptoms. How am I ever going to get better? And you listen to his talks, and he's a I think he's a neurophysicist, and he studied this, and it's just he's got data and research. And then when you listen to it and you start applying it and you start following it, because he really talks, and we listened to that podcast where he talks about how people think the same. 90% of your thoughts are the same from day to day. So every day you're thinking how sick I am, how everything hurts, how you're so ill, how you can't do anything. 90% of those thoughts are repeated the next day and the next day. So you're thinking the same thoughts in your head. And so your body is listening to this, your mind is listening to this, your limbic system is listening to this, your immune system is listening to this. And so you're not getting better. You break that cycle and you start thinking where you want to be. You start thinking as if you're already there. It's a very fantastic talk. If nothing else after this live, go listen to that link that I put on sometime earlier this week. I think it was on Sunday that I put on the group. Go listen to that talk and process it in. He talks a lot because he's a neurophysicist and he just talks a lot of scientific stuff. But your mind is the most important tool in getting better. So I'm going to leave you guys with that. It's a little past time, but please, go and do yourself a favor and listen to that talk and follow the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and you can really, really jumpstart, healing yourself. I'll just look at some comments here. Everyone said, glad you had that support from your family. Tammy's asking something about coffee enemas. Tammy, you can probably join. There's a really good coffee enema group, Facebook group that you can join. And then anyone else? All same for me. Yes, Tammy, I know we've had a very, very parallel story. And then, I know you've healed and then you backtracked again, and same thing happened to me. Were you on testosterone? Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I agree with you. Thank you, Tammy. So yes, so I just want to make sure that I got through all the questions and comments. So thank you so much, guys. This has been awesome again, and we will be back here next Tuesday. Please ask your questions under the image that I put out every Friday, and I will try to get to all the questions best I can. And have a great night, guys. Happy healing. Talk to you later.